just around the time that Sulochana was attacking Kirtanananda, the other ISKCON leaders were trying to make Kirtanananda their centerpiece example of the most wonderful, most advanced guru in ISKCON. So there was an extreme struggle going on between Sulochana and the ISKCON leaders. Sulochana was trying to pull Kirtanananda down, and the other ISKCON leaders were at that very instant trying to push him up. They were trying to say Kirtanananda is the best guru we have. His New Vrindavan project is the best project that there is in ISKCON. He's the most advanced devotee, and they more or less anointed him as the king of ISKCON because he was wearing a golden crown and silk clothes, and he was being carried around on a palanquin. None of the other gurus were really advertised in such an ostentatious way. So Kirtanananda was emerging as, you could say, the main guru of ISKCON. And this was supported by the other gurus and leaders. They were trying to make him their example of the most wonderful, most advanced personality. Meanwhile, whenever Kirtanananda would sit on his seat, he was covered with the hands of 50, 60 boys. So it was pretty evident to the rest of us that he was a pedophile. And there were rumors that Kirtanananda had little boys in his sleeping bag, and there were eyewitness accounts of Kirtanananda having all kinds of little boys in his cottage and his motorhome, and there were orders that none of the adults were allowed to approach his cottage or motorhome when he was there alone with the boys. So this was very suspicious to us, but none of the leaders thought it was suspicious at all. They thought this is wonderful, this is pure devotional activity. No one really, amongst the ISKCON leadership, none of them connected this to homosexual pedophile activity. Then again, there are suspicions that some of the leaders knew that homosexual child molesting was going on, and they knew that Kirtanananda was a homosexual, and they were just covering it up, because the older devotees like Mukunda and Hansaduta and Sasvarup, they knew, or they should have known, that Kirtanananda was part of a homosexual household before he became a devotee. So a lot of us knew that. So if they knew he was a homosexual, and they knew he had little boys in his cottage and motorhome, and little boys were covering him all the time on his seat, they should have been suspicious that there was some child molesting activity going on. But instead of, supporting our suspicions, they just said Kirtanananda is as pure as Jesus. They went the opposite direction. The ISKCON leaders began to say Kirtanananda is like Jesus. He's the most pure person on the planet. Radhanath told me that personally. Radhanath said to me, as far as I'm concerned, Kirtanananda is the purest devotee on the planet. So they were, just at the time we were trying to expose the child molesting problem, and the fact that some of the leaders were implicated in the child molesting, the ISKCON leaders went the opposite direction, and they began to pound the drum for the idea that Kirtanananda is equal to Jesus. So, in other words, a very fanatical cult atmosphere was being cultivated intentionally. Radhanath was saying Kirtanananda is the greatest pure devotee. He's Srila Bhaktipad. Umapati was saying that. Kuladri was saying that. Rabindra Swarup was saying that. Trivikram was saying that. All of the big leaders were backing Kirtanananda. And Sasvarup wrote that Kirtanananda is like Jesus. And Ramachar was saying Kirtanananda is the greatest devotee. Even Hansaduta was saying Kirtanananda is the purest devotee on the planet, and so on and so forth. So in other words, all the leaders conspired together just at the time that the child molesting was at a peak, and just at the time that Kirtanananda was himself molesting children. They decided that they were going to equate Kirtanananda with Jesus in their writings, in their talking, and in their lectures, and so on. So in other words, anyone who challenged Kirtanananda was challenging Jesus. Anybody who thought Kirtanananda was impure, or what to speak of, he was a child molester, was, discrediting Jesus, was attacking Jesus. So it was a intentionally violent cult atmosphere was being cultivated by the ISKCON leaders because they wanted to promote the worship of homosexual child molesters. And they wanted to discredit and harass anyone who challenged that. Meanwhile, in India, Bhavananda was engaging in homosexual activities in the holy Dham. He was having homosexual affairs with taxi drivers and rickshaw drivers and this type of thing. This was also being reported, And it was being reported that he was bringing in a whole bunch of homosexuals into ISKCON, and that this was creating a child molesting problem. So, never mind the Kirtanananda problem, they had another huge child molesting and homosexual child molester worshipping problem going on in India at the same time. So, they can't say they were unaware of all of this because it was going on basically around the world. Meanwhile, another problem was developing for the ISKCON leaders. Some people were actually envious and upset that they had not also been made into gurus. They says, well, Kirtananda's a guru and Hansadutta is a guru. I'm just as good as they are. How come I'm not also the Messiah of ISKCON? I should also be a Messiah. So there was one devotee in New Vrindavan. His name was Triyogi Das, Michael Shockman, and he wanted to be the guru for Cleveland, Ohio. He said, I should be the guru. Kirtananda should give me his rubber stamp, and I should be worshipped in Cleveland as if I'm as good as Jesus over here. And Kirtananda was always blocking that and checking that, and he said, no. He says, in my zone, my area, I'm going to be the exclusive Jesus for this area, which was, West Virginia and Pennsylvania and I think Toronto and a few places. Kirtananda was Jesus for that area. So anyway, Triyogi, he got into a big argument with Kirtananda about this at New Vrindavan, and he got so enraged that Kirtananda refused to rubber stamp him as the new Jesus for Cleveland, that he actually attacked Kirtananda with a pipe, an iron pipe, and he cracked Kirtananda's skull. And so Kirtananda was taken to the hospital. He almost died from that injury. He was attacked very severely by Triyogi Das. Now somehow or other, the ISKCON leaders decided, let's blame Sulochan for that attack, although Sulochan had no ambition to be rubber stamped as one of their gurus. He wasn't connected in any way, shape, or form to the people who were ambitious and who also wanted to be gurus. Sulochan thought they're just as bad as the original 11 gurus, the people who were aspiring to be rubber stamped by the original 11. They're an equal part of the problem. So there was no connection between Triyogi and Sulochan, but somehow or other the leaders, lumped him in with Sulochan in order to really try to discredit Sulochan all the more and actually create some kind of a violent reaction on Sulochan. They were trying intentionally to get Sulochan killed. They said, Sulochan, he's the cause of all this trouble we had over here with Triyogi. Of course, me and Sulochan, at that time, we were falling off our chairs laughing. We said, how is this? The Jesus for West Virginia was just attacked by the Jesus for Ohio. So the Jesuses are trying to kill each other, fighting over their worship. So this is how absurd the ISKCON leaders' situation had become. People were actually fighting over who's going to be worshipped and who's going to have the post of Messiah for a certain area. So threatening the ISKCON leaders to become a guru, one of their gurus, already had worked. Gopal Krishna had threatened that unless they made him a guru in India, he was going to go to the Indian newspapers and complain that they were not making Indian gurus. All the other 11 were white guys. He said, you're all white guys. You don't have any Indian guys, so you're excluding the Indians from being gurus. So he threatened them, and so right away the 11, they voted in Gopal Krishna as a guru because they were afraid of his threats. So Triyogi was thinking, well, if I threaten them, I'll also become a guru. So Sridhar Maharaj actually started this process. He said, he was asked, if people are envious of Ramachar, what should we do? And Sridhar said, well, we should make them into gurus too. So in other words, if you see Jesus walking down the street and you're so angry and envious of Jesus, you want to start beating him over the head with the pipe, then according to Sridhar Maharaj and Narayan Maharaj and Satsvarup, you should also be made into another Jesus yourself. So people who want to attack Jesus, they want to kill Jesus, no problem, we'll make them also Jesus.